So how do we win in fantasy football? Well, a big portion of that is making sure that we are finding value in our drafts. I have 5 players that I think are being dramatically undervalued, and they have the opportunity to dramatically outperform and outpace their ADP and their projected stats in 2025. So going in reverse order, the first person on my list is going to be none other than Zach Charbonnet. He is going as pick 106 around the end of the 9th round, beginning of the 10th round, somewhere in there. Depending on how your draft works out, you may not be able to get Kenneth Walker, or he may be a little overvalued. So when it comes to Zach Charbonnet, he is one of the higher RB2s in fantasy football. You're not anticipate seeing him playing as much if Kenneth Walker is out there. But what do we know about Kenneth Walker? Unfortunately, he has a really hard time staying healthy. If you're someone who doesn't really believe or doesn't like doing the RB handcuffs, and I understand why, taking Zach Charbonnet towards the middle end of your drafts is a great opportunity, because if you don't have Kenneth Walker on your team and he misses games or misses a huge chunk of the season and you have Zach Charbonnet on your bench, he is a plug and play RB2 automatically in fantasy football. The weeks that Kenneth Walker missed or did not play an entire game last season, Zach Charbonnet was right there as a high-end RB2 every single game and every single week. Now, I'm not saying that Zach Charbonnet will ever see a significant amount of time on the field. Kenneth Walker very well could stay healthy. But what I am saying is that he is going at a point in your draft where you're starting to think about taking dart throws. And for me, Zach Charbonnet, if Kenneth Walker misses enough games, and especially if he misses games towards the end of your season or in your fantasy football playoffs, he has the opportunity to help you win your fantasy football championship in 2025, hands down, no question. Like I said, the guy was a monster. I want to say it was like over 20 fantasy points in a PPR format per game that Kenneth Walker did not play the entire football game. Next on my list is going to be at pick number 68, and that is going to be Calvin Ridley. Again, these are average draft positions against all redraft leagues. I can't do it for best ball and dynasty and everything else. Like, it's just for redraft. But he is going at pick number 68. He is actually someone who's slowly creeping up in the rankings like I said he was going to about a month and a half ago. It's kind of annoying because I still haven't drafted in my actual league yet, so I'm going to have to pay up a little bit more than I wanted to, but he's still going as a value. You still have a decent chunk of wide receivers who I anticipate and I have projected to score less fantasy points in 2025 than Calvin Ridley. Cam Ward is coming in. He is going to have severely elevated quarterback play from Will Levis. You have Calvin Ridley last year, who had the most yards per reception that he's ever had in his entire career, regardless of team and regardless of quarterback play. Cam Ward and him in their first preseason game did exactly what I said I thought they were going to do in the actual season, and he is going to be the primary target earner on this team. He is someone who is going to easily eclipse 1,000 plus receiving yards, and he's probably going to be close to 8 to 10 touchdowns by the end of the season. Calvin Ridley is not being valued as high as he should be. He is a wide receiver 1. He is going after a handful of wide receiver 2s and other wide receiver 1s who are not going to have as much of a target share on their team, whether it's because of the running backs, other wide receiver 2s, or tight ends on their respective football teams. Calvin Ridley is in a smash spot. He is somebody who has a potential in reality to finish the season as a wide receiver 2 on your football team. I'm not saying he's going to be wide receiver 16, but would it surprise me, or should it surprise you, if he finishes as wide receiver 22, wide receiver 23? No. It was only 2 years ago he was the wide receiver 18. And again, Calvin Ridley's not that old. He's not washed. He's just had bad quarterback play, and I anticipate seeing a huge jump up from Cam Ward in 2025. The next person I have on my list is kind of a surprise person. That's because it is none other than Joe Mixon. So the biggest issue that's really not an issue if you're looking for value is that he is just falling down draft boards. He's around like RB, I want to say like 24, 25 as of today. I think he's going to fall a bit more before we get to the beginning of the season. Now, the biggest thing, if you are drafting between now and then as he continues to fall, you are getting a guy last year who, through his healthy games at the beginning of the season before he got injured, he was pacing as an RB1. The guy is elite. He is older. He is injury prone. Obviously, he's already injured again before the season starts. I'm not a fan of drafting injured players before the season starts, much like Christian McCaffrey last year. But at some point in time, Joe Mixon has to come off your draft boards. He has to be higher value than some of these RB2s that he's going after now. He's at a point in time already where he is a huge, huge value considering how much he has fallen. If we end up getting news that Joe Mixon is going to miss one game or no games or 2 games or just 4 games maybe, he's still going to be in a smash spot. The Texans have not added any significant depth behind him aside from Nick Chubb, but I don't really know how much we're going to get out of Nick Chubb. Reports out of camp, which aren't always reliable, aren't that great for Nick Chubb. I think Joe Mixon is going to be somebody who's going to end up winning people leagues, provided he stays healthy once he comes back. Again, you can't predict injuries, but provided he stays healthy, and because of how that you're able to draft him in your drafts and how much later he's going to go over the next week or two, he is somebody who could absolutely win you your fantasy football championship if he's healthy for the playoffs, because he has RB1, high RB2 upside, and now he's going as basically an RB3, and he'll probably fall to around an RB4 range. The next person on my list is going to be none other than George Kittle. I've heard a lot of people talking about George Kittle, so this is nothing new, something spicy, so I apologize for that. But when I look at my draft board, I can't help but think about how much value I'm getting out of George Kittle. You're getting a guy who fantasy points per game was right there with Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, and he's going anywhere from around the 2 rounds later depending on how your league is drafting tight ends this season. The other big thing to keep in mind when it comes to George Kittle, you don't have to believe in an offense to take a player on a team. I still have some faith in Kyle Shanahan. I still have faith in Brock Purdy. I know a lot of people out there have kind of started to write them off a little bit for dead this season. I don't know why, considering their projected points, projected yards, and projected wins are top 10 pretty much in all those categories, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on win total, but I know that they're up there in everything else. A lot of people out there also don't believe as much in Juwan Jennings. They don't believe in Brandon Ayuk. Some people believe in Ricky Pearsall. So if there's an ambiguous situation in the receiving game, why are you not going to take a shot on a guy who already was a top 3 tight end last season, has historically been a top 10 tight end pretty much every year he's been in the league? He is a guy who's going to be a number 1 or number 2 receiving target for the 49ers in 2025, who are projected, like I said, to score significantly more points, significantly more yards, and win significantly more games in 2025. And you don't have to draft him at the price tag of a Brock Bowers or a Trey McBride, where he realistically should be going in our drafts. Last for me is going to be someone I haven't talked about, and I've thought about it more and more as I've done my mock drafts. That's going to be none other than Drake London. Right now, he's going around wide receiver 10 in ADP consensus across all your different formats in redraft. The craziest thing to me, last season, he was the number 5 wide receiver overall in a PPR format. Number 5. You're able to take him at number 10. You're able to take a guy at the end of the 2nd round. Sometimes you can get him at the beginning of the 3rd round on the turn. He is somebody who's dramatically undervalued. And I understand people are concerned about Michael Penix. But when you look at Michael Penix through his last 3 games, dude, the guy was throwing the ball to Drake London. Drake London had a huge amount of targets from Michael Penix in their 3 games that they played together. They now have a whole offseason together. They're still going to have Bijan. They're still going to have Darnell Mooney. They're still going to have Kyle Pitts, whatever that means, on this football team. They are going to be in a position where they could be a league average at worst, top 10 potentially scoring offense in the NFL, and we gotta find guys in top 10 scoring offenses, or at least guys who have the potential to be in top 10 scoring offenses in our drafts. The other big thing to keep in mind, the Falcons defense is probably going to go from more of a bottom 10 to a league average defense, so it's not like they're world beaters out there. They're not going to stop every team from scoring. They're not going to be a crazy lockdown defense. So that means that Michael Penix and this Falcons offense, led by Drake London and Bijan Robinson, should have to pass the ball a lot, which means that his receptions and targets should be around the same. It's not like he had a crazy outlier season where his yards per route run or his yards per reception or yards per target were like off the charts. He just had an elevation in targets and target quality, whether it was from Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix. And obviously he's going to have Michael Penix again. We're going to expect another step up from Michael Penix. His tape in college was great. I think Drake London being taken as the wide receiver 10 who finished as wide receiver 5 last year is kind of crazy to me. He is somebody who has top 5 upside again in 2025. And again, you're drafting him closer to like what his floor should be as a bottom wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 in fantasy football. So worst case scenario, he finishes where you drafted him. Best case scenario, he finishes again as a top 5, top 6 guy at the wide receiver position, and you've extrapolated value from taking him as the wide receiver 10 in your drafts. So those are 5 guys who I believe are being undervalued and will outperform their average draft position from right now to the end of 2026, or I guess the 2025 season rather. And they are going to end up being guys who, some of them have the potential to win you your leagues, and other ones can just be role players on your team to help you get to the playoffs and maybe have the opportunity to help you win some games in your playoffs as well. Hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championships in 2025. If you're looking for other late round picks at specific positions, I'll have videos around here somewhere. You can watch those. Feel free. Hopefully I'll see you guys again. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.